We're going to go ahead and get started with our forum today. It's time. So I'm going to introduce myself and then pass it to Adeline and then off to Sidra. So my name is Karen Abrams. I'm chair of the Environment Committee. If you were here last week, you heard that and you're hearing it again. You can't hear me. Okay, there you go. Better. I work closely with Reed Dechon and Chris Moore, former co-chairs of the Environment Committee. We are organizing various educational fora for the season of creation. A couple things about the Environment Committee that I wanted to share with you is we are focusing on the theme of climate right now, particular interest around climate justice. Looking ahead to the future, we are working on some relationship building with our affordable housing ministries, which is partly why Sidra is here today. Looking to develop relationships with the anti-racist ministry, the youth ministry, building and grounds committee. Once season of creation is over, we're going to be turning our attention to Earth Day and the plant sale coming up this spring. So if any of those things interest you, I'm going to pass around a sign-up sheet. And you can sign up and put your name down and email if you'd like to get on our email lists. So that's coming around. Today's forum is going to be Sidra, who is from Washington Interfaith Network. Last week we heard from Dr. Jessica Moorman, Director and CEO of the Evangelical Environment Network. She gave us a great talk about climate change and the role that we all play in climate change, the disproportionate impacts to the poor, the underserved. And she also made a strong case for how the work we can do to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which helps reduce the impacts of climate change, can also be a benefit multiplier for those same people who are disproportionately experiencing the impacts of poverty, hunger, disease, etc. So we're really glad to have Sidra here with us today. Like I said, she is with Washington Interfaith Network. She is a community organizer with a particular focus on their climate work. So with that, Adeline, you could lead us in a prayer, that would be great.
God be with you. Let us pray. Almighty God, who is the breath of life, we ask that you would be present with us. Open our hearts and minds to all that we can learn about you and your creation. We pray that you would give us the wisdom of discernment, the courage for advocacy, and strength to persevere. Be present. Guide us. Love us and teach us to love. We pray this in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here with you all today. I came last year to St. Columba's and talked a lot about the work we were doing in our streets with gas testing outside, and actually had the opportunity to go on a walk with some folks at St. Columba's around the church to see how gas was impacting us, not just in DC, but directly in the church building. So I'm glad to be here once again to talk with you all about the intersections of housing and climate and health, because I know, and I'm sure many of you know, that they are all so connected. I work with the Washington Interfaith Network, which is a coalition of around 50 congregations, synagogues, mosques in DC to organize and act out justice on a number of different issues, from public safety to affordable housing, making sure folks are living in not just affordable housing, but affordable and dignified housing, so free of mold, a home that you're able to breathe safely in. And this month of October, we have been partnering with Interfaith Power and Light, which some of you may also be familiar with. They do some really great work on connecting faith to climate action in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And we're gathered here today for Climate in the Pulpits all month. Different congregations and mosques are all going to be gathering together, learning together about the theme, which this year is For All That Has Breath. And we're participating as a chance to really reflect on the harm that burning fossil fuels for energy is causing in our neighborhoods here in DC and just to the natural world. But I'd like to take a moment before we get into the real meat of the discussion today to return to ourselves and to our breath. So if you guys will indulge me, we can close our eyes just for a moment and take a couple deep breaths together. So if you want to inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Thanks. You can open your eyes. So our breath connects us to each other and helps us find a common rhythm. Our breath links us for all that has breath, and even to trees and plants that inhale, that exhale the oxygen for us to breathe in. So all living things are in conversation and breathing with one another. And ultimately, our breath connects us to the source of all life, and it's why we're gathered here today. Most traditions mention breath in their religious texts. So I'm Muslim, and in the Quran we have the word nafas, which is the word for breath, and the very first time it's mentioned is in the first couple of pages in the Quran, where it's talking about the Lord and says, "When I made him, I breathed my spirit into him." And then we know in Psalms, it says, "All that has breath declares God's glory together." So there's these links between all major faiths with breath, and yet in the district, there seems to be a problem now with the air quality. Do folks remember this past summer? There was a lot of wildfire smoke that brought weeks of haze, and in the pandemic we got used to wearing our masks inside, and then we were finding that this past summer with the wildfires and the nitrogen dioxide and other pollutants that were in the air, we were having to wear our masks outside. And for me, that hit really hard because during this work, we've been doing a lot of citizen science research, as we call it. And we had been taking nitrogen dioxide testers out to different kitchens. We actually tested the St. Columba's kitchen. One of these photos is of that. That's testing the exact same thing that this past summer on the news with the wildfires. When I was going outside, those were the same exact things. They were talking about outdoor air quality, and we were testing indoor air quality, and they used the same exact measurement system. So when I tested the kitchen here at St. Columba's, you guys were in the green range. But we've tested over 200 kitchens in the district so far, and are finding that a lot of kitchens are twice, even 3 times what the EPA standard for outdoor air is. So those are the same numbers that when we were outside during that wildfire smoke, folks were being asked to mask up. Yet those are the numbers that when we're in our kitchens and turning our stove on, Those are the exact same numbers, at the exact same levels of nitrogen dioxide. So for me, that really put into perspective that there's a lot going on in our kitchens that aren't yet visible. So we've been doing the citizen science work to try and turn the invisible of methane gas visible. And through that process have also been learning amongst ourselves a lot about methane gas, because we come to this work as organizers. We're not scientists, although we're now when we talk sometimes it sounds like we are, and we're learning more about gas every day. But what our team has learned really, there's two really strong teams right now in Ward 7 and Deanwood and River Terrace, who have been going door to door asking their neighbors if they want their gas stove tested, to learn more about the air quality. And what we're finding is that smaller, and it makes sense, but smaller kitchens have higher concentrations of gas when you're turning your gas stove on. And that's not great for folks' health. It increases chances to develop asthma. It's not great for older folks. And increases chances of things like COPD, other respiratory conditions. And it's also not great for the environment. But when we're going into folks' homes and testing that gas, a lot of times it's because the ventilation systems aren't really working great. So they'll turn the fan on, but it doesn't vent to the outside, or the kitchen's really tight because it's a public housing unit and you only get a certain amount of square footage. And it's really showing for me that even though many kitchens might have gas, it's really impacting those who are lower income more. So for those who heard the talk last week, you might have put those connections together, that those folks who are low income are experiencing the brunt of climate change first. And to me, that means that they need to be the first ones to reap the benefits. And we're in a really unique moment of time right now because there's a lot of federal money with the Inflation Reduction Act. There's $300 billion nationwide, and DC is going to receive a good amount of that. And we have the power to help shape what that looks like in our district, and to say, we don't want that just to go to only folks who can afford, a rebate. So you buy it up front. You might buy an electric water heater or electric heat pump, or you might try and get solar panels, but you're just going to get a rebate for that. So you have to buy it up front first. That leaves a lot of people out. And it also means that if those who are wealthier are transitioning off of gas first, then that means those who are left on the gas systems, their rates are going to raise. They're going to be dealt with paying for all of this gas infrastructure and not given the supports needed to help out. So what we're envisioning instead is that those who are making 80% AMI, which is the area median income in DC, are going to be the first to receive the climate benefits. We're proposing that those families are the first to electrify and are given ample support. And of course, it's still a choice. Miss Rosalie, one of the leaders in River Terrace, likes to joke around and be like, sometimes I'm walking around my neighborhood, with my gas leak detector, and neighbors are coming up to me saying, like, oh, I see that detector in your hand, Rosa. Are you going to come, try and rip out my gas stove next? And that's not at all what we're asking. We're trying to give resources for those who want to transition, make sure they have ample resources to do so. Because we know that below the ground, the pipe that brings gas to homes, it leaks. It leaks potent, climate-disrupting methane into the air. I mentioned a couple of years ago, teams from a dozen congregations in DC, including St. Columba's, they measured nearly 400 methane gas leaks in the district. And over a dozen of those were already at levels that could cause an explosion. So of course, when we found those, we did call Washington Gas, and depending on what area we were in, they would either come very quickly or come very slowly. So we found a gas leak in Ward 3 around like Woodley Park area and called it in. Washington Gas sent some firefighters to come out immediately with some equipment, and they had a plan ready immediately to, like, this is how long it's going to take to patch up that gas leak, but for now we're going to drill some holes to help that gas escape so it's not all concentrated in one area. The very same thing happened when we were in Ward 7 in River Terrace. There was a gas leak. Someone was walking their dog and actually smelled the gas and was like, oh, come over here, test this one, because they saw us with our equipment. We did the exact same thing. We called, we said the exact same stuff, and instead the response we got was someone from Washington Gas saying, oh, that number that you're giving us, that's only halfway to the explosive level. Which is ridiculous. It was, first of all, it was higher than the number that we found when we were testing in Woodley Park, but that got a very quick response. And then second, we know gas levels can change very quickly, so if it's already in that lower explosive limit, is what we call it, that could become dangerous very quickly. So after we hung up that call from Washington Gas, we ended up calling 911, and then the firefighters came out and did some things. But it really showed that gas is leaking everywhere, but people are being treated differently in the district based on where they live. And the Washington Gas, whenever they're at any council building activities, they end their statements around gas leaks with like a generic message saying, if you smell gas, call Washington Gas and we'll come and help. But we're finding that that actually is not the solution for many folks. The only solution there that we see is that we transition off of gas, that we're no longer reliant on this fossil fuel, and the alternative is to move on to electricity. And with electricity, there's always options for ways to make that more energy efficient, whether it's solar or wind. But with gas, you really don't have that opportunity to get even more green. So we learned about those, how gas was running under the streets, below the ground, and then above the ground, burning gas inside our homes. It hurts young folks who breathe indoor air pollution. And our partners in Maryland have also been doing this work. So if you're interested, later we can send around a sign up, and you can sign up to get your own gas stove tested if you're interested in how it is in your kitchen. We'd be happy to have one of our citizen scientists that we've been training come out and test that for you guys. Ultimately, above the ground, way above the ground, up in the atmosphere, we know that gas has been pouring heat-trapping pollutants into our skies, accelerating the climate crisis. So the truth of the matter is, your breath, my breath, our breath, the very breath of all life is polluted by the continued burning of fossil fuels. So this morning, I'm here to invite everyone to use your breath for the sacred purpose of speaking out and raising our voices together through community organizing, and call for repair and for protection of our breath in the District of Columbia. We'll pass out in a moment these yellow slips that we've got right here, that we're creating a petition to send to council to pass the Healthy Homes Act. So that's legislation that would help move some of those IRA dollars into low-income communities first, and make sure that folks have the opportunity to electrify at zero cost to them. So I talked a little bit about rebates earlier. So instead of individuals having to buy it up front and getting those rebates, the district, the Department of Energy and Environment in the district, would be the one receiving those rebates from the federal government, and then buying it up front and giving it to residents. And then they're the ones that get that rebate rather than us, the consumers. So it really opens the opportunity up for more folks to be able to access those Inflation Reduction Act dollars. And also, that doesn't just help folks, like electrification doesn't just help folks, breathe cleaner air, but it helps save dollars on their utility bill. A lot of folks have really aged out equipment, and by getting this newer energy efficient equipment, electric bills, we're seeing are either staying the same even though they're using more electricity, or in some cases are going down. And it also is allowing folks to stay in their homes. We've been talking with a lot of folks. WIN has a Black Equity Through Home Ownership team, and when they were speaking with Washingtonians who were born in the district, raised here, why they were considering moving out, it was ultimately it's too expensive. And even though they own homes, they have generational homes that were passed down to them, it's expensive to keep up. There's homes that have furnaces that go out every winter, and heating systems that don't work, so they have these big window AC units that they rely on every year. And in many public housing buildings that we've spoken to, and they don't have control right now over their own units, AC or heating. So a lot of the times in the winter, it's actually way too hot in their unit, and they end up opening the window and turning the window AC unit on, which is in the winter, they're turning that AC on because their homes are just so boiling hot. And that's just a bad use of money on DCHA, the housing authority's part, because you're using all this money on heating folks' homes, and you're heating it way too well. And then folks are also experiencing mold when that excessive utility bill they're receiving. That money could be spent for way better things like mold remediation. Not only would electrification be helping folks with their utility bills, with their health, with the climate, but it would be helping keep families in DC and keep home ownership in generations that have held it. We can go ahead and pass these out, but I'm happy to open it up for any questions that folks have. I know we touched on a lot of different things, and sometimes it can be hard to imagine a clean energy future where for all that has breath, all things that are breathing are cared for. But maybe this morning, gathered together, we can try. We can take one step towards trying to reach that vision. There's a poet that I like, Arundhati Roy, who writes, "Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I hear her breathing." So as we take action now by filling out these cards, calling on council to pass the Healthy Homes Act, calling on council to make sure low-income folks have the resources to transition off of gas, I hope that we may usher in that new day, and that we are quiet enough to hear that the breathing of the new world is on her way. So, thank you. Yes, you can, yes. WIN organizes primarily in DC, but Interfaith Power and Light, our partner for Climate in the Pulpits, does organizing work in Maryland. So If you are in Maryland and just want to like write MD on your card, then it can be used for pushing for what's called the Empower legislation, which I admittedly know less details about, but is similarly working to get low-income folks in Maryland off of gas. Yeah, so if you want to fill it out, and then what's the best way of collecting them? And you want to put them on the podium on your way out, then we'll be sure to send them over to council.
So if folks have any questions for Sidra, if there's a mic set up right there, go ahead and start thinking about your questions and asking them. Looks like Reed is headed to the mic.
Sidra, could you tell us a little bit more about the Healthy Homes Act? Who's introducing it? Where is it in the process? And what else we can do to help, like hearings or whatever?
Definitely. The Healthy Homes Act, there was a hearing about it this past spring, and we organized 86 folks to come out and testify, which was really fabulous. After there's a hearing, then bills are marked up based on what the council member heard during that hearing. So for us, we were really pushing to make sure that it was accessible not just to homeowners but to renters. So if a renter is low income, that homeowner would still qualify and be able to retrofit that home for the resident. So that was one of the recommendations we had. Another recommendation we had that was for multifamily buildings, that it qualifies for electrification under this program if 51% of those residents are income qualified. So if you have a unit or a building that's 10 units in there and 6 folks are income qualified but the others aren't, we still think that the entire building should be able to be electrified. So those were 2 of the recommendations we had. Right now it's in the process of being marked up by the Committee for Transportation and Environment, which is where that bill sits. And then once it's marked up, which actually will hopefully be any day now, then it'll move to the Committee of the Whole, which is the entire DC Council, where it'll be marked up and then voted on. So we're looking at passage hopefully by the end of the year, which is why it's super important right now that this is the last moment to get our voices in and make sure our council members know that it's something that we support.
Good morning, and thank you for coming. We appreciate it. My question, just thinking about the city, I'm going to guess that just about every house in the city has gas.
Yep.
And the transfer to electricity for the whole city is a massive project. Do you think the electrical grid in the city could stand it if we all plugged in at the same time and turned on our gas heaters and our stoves?
Yeah, if we did that all immediately, like this very second, no, definitely not. But so Pepco has plans to really increase the power of their electric grids, which is a big step. And then also, as we increase the amount of folks that are using solar, that also helps that electric burden. Yes, a lot of homes right now are on gas, but a lot of older homes, so the new homes that are being built right now, especially multifamily buildings, they're not being built on gas. A lot of those developers know by now that is not the direction the district is heading. So they don't want to have to retrofit everything 30 years down the line when they're being forced to. They're building buildings now that are running on electric. So yeah, the big thing is really making sure that the existing stock is keeping up with that.
Okay, now we also, as a parish, support an organization called Rebuilding Together. And so each year we go and work on at least one home in the city trying to make it better. Would you suggest that we look at replacing gas for electricity, electric stoves, electric heat, whatever can be done, as a priority in our work?
Yes, definitely. I would recommend that, and I can also help you get connected to some resources to help figure out exactly how to do that. Rewiring America has a lot of great materials for what would be possible with the Inflation Reduction Act in DC, exactly what appliances, and not just appliances, but weatherization and making sure our buildings are climate resilient, making sure that if you're on a floodplain, that there's extra steps taken for that home to make sure that it isn't going to flood during a heavy rain period, those kinds of things. So the DC Green Bank has a lot of great stuff, rewiring America, and then a lot of that money in the district flows through the DC Sustainable Energy Utility, DC SEU. So those are all great resources.
Do you have this list online somewhere or anything? Can we go to your website and find it?
Yeah, definitely. You can either, I would recommend going to the Beyond Gas DC website. It's Beyond Gas DC.
Beyond Gas.
Mm-hmm. So Beyond Gas is a coalition of nonprofits in DC, Washington Interfaith Network, Sierra Club, and Interfaith Power and Light.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Sidra. Great questions, Tom. Just looking at the time here.
Yeah.
So the one question I had, it's related back to the Healthy Homes Act and thinking back to the presentation we heard last week about the disproportionate impacts on low-income communities in terms of utility costs, also just reflecting on the incredible climate impact of methane and nitrous oxide. It's orders of magnitude greater than CO2. So getting the stuff out of our air, absolutely a priority if we're interested in climate change, and also if we care about low-income affordability in homes. So thinking about the Healthy Homes Act, can you speak to, does the act obligate the city to expend DC dollars itself, or is this really more about prioritizing how the city spends the Inflation Reduction Act funds that they are set to receive?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's a combination. So the Inflation Reduction Act dollars actually haven't hit the district or any of the states yet. The Department of Energy federally just gave guidance for the local departments of energy on how they can prepare for using that money, but the money hasn't actually hit the district yet. So right now, the Healthy Homes Act would be funded through what's called the Sustainable Energy Trust Fund, which is just a bucket of money in the district's budget. So right now it's local district dollars from the budget, just like public safety is a part of the district's budget, or anything that the district does, whether it's repairing potholes or education programs. It's just part of that larger bucket of money. But it's set up for in the first couple of years to begin accelerating the number of homes that we're able to reach once it's passed. And by that point, we'll be able to funnel the Inflation Reduction Act dollars into it. So it actually sets us up really nice. A lot of other states don't have programs like this yet, so they'll have to start from scratch once they get the Inflation Reduction Act dollars in, but we're able to kind of set DC up for acting faster by combining local and federal dollars.
Hi. I just wanted to say thank you for coming back for this ongoing work. It's going to take some persistence. I wanted to ask a question about trees. Trees are another element of environmental justice. And is WIN working on this, or other organizations, or the DC government to plant trees in?
Yeah, for trees, my go-tos are always Casey trees and then Ward 8 woods. They do really good work on making sure that the district is planting trees equitably, so the shade and the heat in the district is more equitable. So WIN supports that work for sure. We aren't organizing actively around it, but our hope is that when we're signing folks up to take part in the Healthy Homes Act program, we'll be able to show them a menu of stuff that they can have. Like if you want a rain garden with native plants, these are the places to go in the district that do that. If you want solar, this is how you get that. Here's where you get the appliances retrofitted. If you want a tree from KC Trees, here's how you get that. So it's a real menu of options, and because there's not one thing we need to do to make the district better with climate standards. There's going to be a lot of steps that we need to take, and the easier we can make it a one-stop shop to do that, I think the better off we'll be.
So one suggestion for people who live in Montgomery County. The county's been pretty forward-looking on electrifying homes, but it's not a simple matter. It's not something you want to do on your own, working with gas lines and so forth. So there's a website, Electrify MC or My Green Montgomery, and they'll actually send people to your home and tell you what you should consider doing to make your house electric in a sensible way. So that's a pitch. But I want to ask a different question, Sidra, which is that working with the Washington Interfaith Network on affordable housing in Ward 3, A, how is that going? And B, I remember that there was a focus that whatever new housing would be built would be all electric and so forth. So perhaps you could say something about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And the Ward 3 team has really been doing a lot of door knocking recently. So if you'd like to get connected to that, then I'm more than happy to put you in touch if you want to either reach out to me, or you can go on WIN's website and find more information for that. But yeah, they've been doing a lot of door knocking around affordable housing in Ward 3 and making sure that affordable housing can be found everywhere. They're working on some specific projects, and I know folks at St. Columba's, like Elizabeth Baden, probably have better updates than I do on the specifics of those projects, like at the Chevy Chase Library and those. So I would recommend reaching out to them for those updates. But there's definitely some stuff ramping up. Yeah, and thank you for mentioning the Maryland work. That's it's really important that we make sure Washington Gas, it serves DC and Montgomery County as well. So when the district is transitioning off of gas, we want to make sure that our neighbors in Montgomery County are also. And we do have citizen scientists trained from Interfaith Power and Light to come out in Maryland and with our sister organization, Action in Montgomery. all of our sister organizations kind of all have those like win, aim, act, those kind of names. So if you hear one of those, and there's a couple in Maryland, so we're still able to come out and test your stove.
Well, I just wanted to thank you again, Sidra, for this talk, and also just wanted to give another shout out to Elizabeth Vaden and Cami and the team all involved with the affordable housing initiatives here at St. Columba's, very active in Ward 3. And we have been, relationally meeting, cross-ministry collaboration doing, and really excited about that. And that's partly why we're so happy that you were able to come today, Sidra, because what you're talking about speaks to so many things that are important and are strategic priorities for St. Columba's. So if you have filled out the yellow sheet and you want to drop it off, you can either give it to me or put it on the podium. And thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.